I think that's part of the anxiety in our culture is that we're always working for tomorrow or thinking about yesterday or all the list of things we have to do. So get them into the moment. What is the
Mhm.
moment? This is our breath. This is our body. And so we want to pay attention to mindfulness, body awareness. One tool that I like for my clients is another one of those brain hacks where you can put your hand up like this and you.
Hello, and welcome to Two Therapists, One Couch. We're two licensed therapists sharing skills and tools that we use with real clients every day. Today, we're breaking down what anxiety really is, why we need it, how to use it, where it comes from, how to harness it to help us based on science and the tools we use in therapy every day.
All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is what is anxiety. So important to understand because there's stressors, there's worry. What is it? Anxiety is a normal physiological and psychological response to threat. When we actually see or we think our body feels like there is a tiger around the corner ready to pounce, our body is going to react to keep us alive. So, in some ways, we need to thank it, that they're there to pay attention to getting us into either fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And then there's this new one, flow, but that's kind of where we are in a regulated space. So we're going to talk about tools to get us to that flow spot. But when we're looking at anxiety, what our brain is doing is trying to keep us alive. It's trying to survive. So when we are normal, regulated, we're in our parasympathetic nervous system. And when we are in fight or flight, we are being hijacked by our amygdala or our lizard brain. Our lizard brain is just for survival. It's just fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So we either want to fight and run after it. We want to flee, run away. Sometimes we freeze, and then sometimes we will fawn. It's kind of like people pleasing or trying to kind of placate, like, "Oh no, it's okay, like it's fine," and we do that with people a lot of times. So those are the three areas where our amygdala takes us, but we don't do a very good job at reasonable or rational thinking or relating to others when we're in our amygdala. Courtney, have you seen the little trick that we do here with looking at our brain or our head kind of like this? So if we're doing this thing here, and these are our eyes up here in the front, and then our prefrontal cortex is right above it. This is where we do our reasonable and rational thinking.
Mhm.
And when we are anxious, we flip our lid. And then what's left is our blood flows all the way to our amygdala. So now we are in our lizard brain. So here, down here is where fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is. So the tools we're going to be talking about today are kind of a brain hack, trying to get the blood to be forced from the amygdala to back into the prefrontal cortex so we can do more reasonable and rational thinking. That's a good way to relate to others. It's a good way to do our jobs. It's a good way to, drive our car down the road. We don't want to be hijacked by our amygdala and flip our lid. We want to be regulated and steady.
So I'm seeing I see a lot of anxiety with folks these days, and I don't know if COVID had a big deal with it or our phones. We shouldn't be exposed to so much crisis and struggle in so many people's lives, right? I mean, because I think that is contributes to people's anxiety. I don't know if you're seeing a lot of this, but my latest area that I'm focusing on with clients because I think it increases their anxiety is that short form video. Right? I think people get stuck in TikTok and the YouTube shorts and all the rest of it.
Hmm.
I think it increases their anxiety because they don't want to be doing it and they stay doing it longer than they want to. Right. And it's just really shallow, right? Even though we feel like, oh, well, even my TikTok feed is good. It has all these things that I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you retain? What do you take away from it? Right?
Hmm.
What are you doing with it?
Hmm.
With all this information. I forget what the stat is, but it's something like 50% of divorces that are filed somewhere mention Facebook. I mean, maybe it dated, right? But so there's something about that connection. Maybe it is that we're too connected to other people, or we catch everybody else's stress, right? Because it doesn't just have to be my stress that we're talking about, right? If there's stress in the room, that can
Yeah,
affect my anxiety, right?
I think so. But what you're talking about and how you're defining it, it almost sounds like you're talking about an addiction, something that you want to stop, but you can't stop. And you you need more of it to feel that same level. It sounds like addiction.
Oh, it
So
is. It's slot
mhm,
machine, right? I mean, when you talk about short form video, it's a slot machine. There's a good
mhm,
one coming, and then like, well, that one's not good, so I'll do it again. Well,
mhm.
oh, that one's good. Well, maybe there's another good one, right? And so then I keep going and I keep going, and that's why I don't use TikTok.
Well, then the anxiety comes in because your mind is thinking about all the other things that you probably should be doing or the things that you
Mhm.
want to do, right? And so you're then stuck there. So that's almost like yeah, I think we're moving into like talking about addiction um in creating that anxiety of wanting to stop and then
Yeah,
like the doom scrolling and all the things that people do with that stuff.
I think people do have a baseline level of anxiety, right? I think there are people that are more prone to anxiety, just like there are
Mhm.
people who are more prone to negative emotional response. So we can heighten our anxiety
Mhm.
no matter what your baseline level is
Right.
by doing things that are more addictive or things that we maybe don't want to do or feeding into it with, these negative thoughts, right? I mean, every time I do an assessment with somebody, and I think my clients are kind of even trained to kind of in every session report about their sleep and their exercise,
Mhm.
right? I mean, those like if we don't get our sleep set, it's like
Yeah.
it's going to be really hard for me to help you with your depression or your anxiety or anything else because you're a zombie, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you're just not going to feel like yourself and you're not going to do your best for yourself. I think exercise is an excellent treatment. We'll probably get to that a little later.
Mhm.
But I always think like we are creatures built for anxiety. And the only reason that we are alive, you and I today, is because our ancestors were anxious because their anxiety kept them alive, right? Like I think of it like a deer in a field, right? It's
Mhm.
like, well, deer in a field, if it hears a crack of a twig in the woods, it's running off. Well, why? Well, because it's flight, right? Because it doesn't have claws. Its defense is having heightened sense of anxiety and fear so that it responds to
Right.
not danger, perceived danger. Well, I think there are lots of things that we can do to, even though we do have a baseline level of anxiety. I don't know if you've seen this, Jeanine, or not, but like people come in and they go, this thing is making me anxious. And
Mhm.
you go, all right. And you work with them for a while and then that thing kind of goes away. It may not even be any doing of therapy, but then something else comes in and takes the place. Like now this thing is this, that's gone, but this is making me anxious.
Well, their body has to be heightened and ready for fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, right? It has to be ready for it. So there has to be something there that creates the anxiety. So if one thing goes away, something else comes in. That's why we have to learn tools, right? And different skills that we do so that we can reduce being anxious all the time. Because even the fight or flight, that cortisol rush, that adrenaline that goes through our body to keep us alive, it's not supposed to be happening every day, all day. It's only when there's an actual tiger around the corner and it's coming after us, right? Like, then we go from baseline to real anxiety. But what I see is that people now, when they're coming in, they're feeling like there's a tiger around the corner at every single moment of the day. And then not only do I assess for, sleep and, exercise, I'm also looking for energy level, right? Because energy level tells me how much cortisol and adrenaline are rushing through their bodies all the time, or it's related sometimes to sleep and not being able to sleep restfully. They sleep for a couple hours and then wake up, and then they sleep a little bit longer, and if it's not restful, if they're tossing and turning, what's going on there that it was is within our scope of practice. So I'm looking at those things to see how can we help with their mental health so that they can sleep better, more restfully, have more energy through the day. Because being anxious all the time is not how our body was created either. It's supposed to be just in those real threats to life, and now it's threats to our reputation, threats to our relationships, is it creates a high level of anxiety for sure.
Perceived threats, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not always accurate in that, right? Like when
Mhm.
we go into the future,
Yeah.
right? And we worry about this thing that might happen. You see that quite a bit. It's like, okay. And it's challenging because we are supposed to be looking into the future, right? Worrying about what's coming up, right? Thinking about how will I handle this. but there's definitely a balance, right? It's like
Mhm,
after 2 or 3 decisions that I'm thinking about are gonna happen in the future, it
mhm,
kind of becomes impossible to predict it, right? Because the variables become infinite very quickly, right? Because say, well, if this happens, then this will
mhm.
happen. And then if that happens, I'm going to, right? But if one of those doesn't do what I expect it to now, I'm not prepared anyway. So there's only so much you can even do when you're preparing for that danger or anticipating it. And I try to remind clients, I'm like, look, when that anxiety shows up and that thing that you're worried about happening happens, you have to remember that you're going to be there too. It's not like you're on autopilot. You
Right.
are going to be able to adjust to whatever the circumstances is with the skills that you have and the knowledge and the experience and the resources. So, can you trust yourself that you'll be able to handle to the best of your ability at the time what comes up?
And part of that is something that we should probably do a whole podcast on are the top cognitive distortions. Because sometimes we don't trust ourselves because we are catastrophic thinking, we are mental filtering, we are doing 100 things that aren't helpful to that anxiety because it's letting our nervous system know that we can't handle it. It's letting our body think that we're not able to do the thing that we need to do. So there's black and white thinking, got all the thinking traps, all the cognitive distortions. But this is a whole thing just by itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going through and challenging each one of those, defining them, and figuring out
Mhm.
what your default. I
Yeah.
hear. I mean, like the main ones I run into, catastrophizing. I mean, that's just. I would say if I had to only pick one,
Mhm.
it would be catastrophizing. If I could pick two,
Black and white
maybe.
thinking, I think, is number 1. Black and white thinking, dichotomous
Yeah,
thinking, it's all or nothing, right? It's all good, it's all bad. They're all good, they're all bad. This job that I have is all bad, right? And
my
so it's that
partner.
black and white thinking, that 0 to 100.
Yeah, and I would say personalization sometimes, and shoulds and musts.
Shoulds and musts, yeah. Don't should all
Yeah,
over yourself, Courtney.
yeah, right. Yeah, I shouldn't do that. But there's a lot of different ways that we kind of trip ourselves up, and knowing your default, knowing what your standard way of avoiding or catastrophizing or
Yeah.
blaming, I think acknowledging it, like because insight doesn't lead to change,
Mm,
right? Just knowing something isn't going well, it isn't the way to have a solution. But without meaningful insight, I don't think real change is possible. So we definitely have to learn what our brain does and challenge it, figure out ways to rewrite it, right? Kind of revamp it, or at least
yeah.
become aware of it and look for a different choice.
I think was it Doctor, Daniel Amen that said, "Don't believe everything you think"?
That's the guy I remember saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that because it's so true. We
Yeah.
have these thoughts in our head and we just let them go. And so until we are aware of them, until they kind of get brought up, or we're like, oh, yeah, I am catastrophizing this. My
Yeah.
job's not all bad. I can come up with two things that are good about it. I get a paycheck. I have some friends there.
Hmm.
I get an hour for lunch. Whatever it is, like we can find ways to alleviate some of our anxiety by just shifting and reframing our thoughts. We need to be aware of it, or we'll avoid it. We'll avoid uncomfortable feelings if we're not paying attention to what we're doing.
So, because we want to be able to give skills and tools, kind of like we talk about in our intro.
Right.
What are the areas that you look at when you're working with a client and they're presenting with anxiety? Like,
Mhm.
I think we can attack it on several fronts.
Absolutely.
Like
Yep.
so. What are the things that you generally look at?
Well, I think I do, you do a lot of CBT stuff in the what we're talking about, the cognitive distortions, but one of my favorite go-tos is the somatic tools, is getting your body regulated. Because if you're paying attention to your body and your breath in the present moment, you have a power there. You can flex your muscles in this
Mm.
moment and you can release them and let them relax. You can breathe deeply into your belly and feel that, and then exhale out. You can visualize peace and calm. In somatic work and somatic experiencing, body and breath work, that's really good for trauma too. And so anytime you can regulate and help someone regulate their body and their breath and be in the moment, I think that's part of the anxiety in our culture, is that we're always working for tomorrow or thinking about yesterday or all the list of things we have to do. So Get them into the moment. What is the
Mhm.
moment? This is our breath. This is our body. And so we want to pay attention to mindfulness, body awareness. One tool that I like for my clients is another one of those brain hacks where you can put your hand up like this and you breathe in through your nose as you're tracing your hand. You could teach your kids this too, because I work with a lot of parents. So you
Mhm.
can teach your kids this when they're feeling anxious. You breathe in through your nose and hold. Breathe out through your mouth and hold. Breathe in through your nose and hold. Breathe out through your mouth and hold. And you just go through your whole hand doing that 5 times, and what you're doing is not only focusing on your body, but you're focusing on your breath. And so when our brains think that they think they're safe when we're paying attention to our own body and our own breath, right? Because again, it's the tiger. If we're focused out there and something else, then it could be a threat. But if we're able to focus on our body, our brain says, "Oh, we're okay. We're not under threat. We can calm down now." And our body immediately just starts to calm down. Our heart starts to slow. Our palms that might be shaky and sweaty, they start to release. Um, so anytime you can get into that space of body and breath work, a 4-7-8, a box breath of 5-5-5, whatever it is that you're doing, it's breathing in intentionally, flexing your muscles, releasing them, flexing them again, just scanning your body from the top of your head to your toes. Where is it tight? Where is it tense? Where is it hot? And then give it a somatic menu, right? Give it words like hard, heavy, light, soft, heat, texture to it. Is there a color to it? When you really pay attention to your body, that is mindfulness. Some people think when they come in, they think, "Oh, I have to empty my mind." No, you don't. You just have to focus on your body and your breath, or pick something up and focus on that thing, right? You can take a pen and you can hold it, and you can focus on all the ways that that pen feels, looks, all of it, and that is mindfulness. It's paying attention to one thing in front of you, and I love that. What's your favorite thing?
Well, I'm not, you know what? I'm not big on the meditation type thing, or I wasn't. But I heard a couple guys talking who I would consider expert meditators,
Mhm.
and I tell clients about this that like that when you're trying to sit down and you're trying to visualize that thing that they want you to visualize, and you're trying to focus on your body and your breathing and all these different things, but your mind is going to real life, right? It's going to what happened yesterday, what's coming up tomorrow, what do I need to go shopping for, right? And so that your mind leaves, and then your job is to bring it back, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing it back, right? And that's what I tell clients, and what I learned from those guys talking about it is the practice of bringing your mind back to the moment is the benefit of meditation.
Mhm.
So if we get well versed at bringing your mind back to your body, bringing your mind back to your breath, bringing your mind back to the music, bringing your mind back to whatever you're holding,
Yes.
then, and you rehearse that while you're meditating,
Mhm.
then when in real life you find yourself going to the past, going to the future, and feeling anxious about it, you're practiced at bringing your mind back to the moment. So if you don't do meditation well, what the definition is to practice bringing your mind back. So then when it shows up in real life, you're well rehearsed at it. So that's that. Even though I don't do it a lot myself, I try to
Mhm.
help clients kind of take the pressure off themselves, because everybody's like, I can't get to this Zen thing where I'm crisscross applesauce floating 6 inches above the floor, in some Zen, state of
Okay.
mind. So, I just want them to be able to go, look, it's just practice bringing your mind back, right? Because that's where our trouble is, not in the now.
Right. I'm with you as far as, the kind of the what it feels like initially starting this whole thing, the 6 inches off the ground and, like, the all that stuff, like, I get that, but then as I read the literature and the scholarship, the stuff works, right?
Well, yeah.
Doing the body and breath work works. Somatic experience, even for processing trauma and pendulation and other things like that that we do, and it works. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it all the time. I'm gonna use it for me. I'm gonna use it for my clients, all day long. The other thing I wanna mention with mindfulness is that when you do have those thoughts and you're coming back to the moment, it's always
Mhm.
gotta be without judgment, right? Don't judge the thoughts, just look at them there. What that sounds like is like, "Oh, there's that thought about work or that work project that I have to do. There it is." And I'm gonna let it float on by like on a cloud without judgment. I think that's huge because sometimes we, resist it and then we're judging it like, "Oh, I can't believe I'm thinking about that again. I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying not to think about it."
Oh.
And the more we resist, the more it persists, but when we name it, we tame it. And so, you gotta let that thought float by without judgment.
Okay, so if we're looking at like what is the takeaway from like if I got anxiety, what should I do? You got your body stuff, you've got your thinking, cognitive tools, but it sounds like there's also that regulation too.
Regulating by body work and also exercise. Like, I'm not a doctor, so I can't make recommendations about how people exercise, but if your
Oh, I
doctor says
think you should exercise.
I think that if you can, and you should get sweaty every day, you should shake all of that anxiety out of your body. Animals do that. That deer, once it survives, if it survives, it shakes. Its whole body shakes, and it
Mhm.
shakes out all of the stress hormones. And we don't have that mechanism, so we have to do it ourselves. So we have to go out, take a walk, take a run, take a bike ride. Um, I mean, just do squats. Like stand up and
Yeah.
make sure that you're feeling your body. That again, that's mindfulness and regulation. It is somewhat exercise. So it
Mhm.
kind of all our mind and our anxiety is connected to our body and our body's connected to our mind and our thoughts. So that's why CBT works, right? Because it's you got
Right.
your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors and behavior activation. So it all is all together. Man, I'd like to do another podcast because I really wanted to talk more about like detaching from from your thoughts, from your anxiety, and not being in it, but just seeing it. And there's some kind of
Mm.
tricks for that in visualization and guided imagery stuff. So I think that stuff's important too. But there's so many tools, and I really think, and I really want for my clients, and I tell them this all the time, I just want you to have the biggest toolbox you can have so that when you do feel anxious and you're not thinking well because you have flipped your lid, right? I want you to be able to reach down in there and pick up anything. It can be deep breathing, it can be progressive muscle relaxation, it can be just like change my thought, like reframe it, right? Find gratitude. It can be anything, but like just keep developing the toolbox. Like make it really big so that anytime you put your hands in there, you can get a tool out and say, I'm going to try this one right now.
So then the challenge that we would have for those that are listening, and if you want to, learn to manage your anxiety, is pick one of the things that we've talked about, right? And
Hmm.
try it this week. Track your thoughts. Maybe you do one of those grounding exercise, the breathing, um, or face something that you've been avoiding because we didn't talk much about that, but avoidance increases anxiety, right?
Yep.
So that thing that we're putting off, we still know it's there, right? Just because we're not looking at the dragon doesn't mean the dragon doesn't exist, right? So
Hmm.
just because we put it off and we feel better because we put it off
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not coming down the road. And we know that, right? So maybe you want to track a thought, notice what your thinking traps is, if your cognitive distortion, or you want to practice doing those breathing exercises and bringing your mind back to the moment, or
Hmm.
you want to say, gosh, you know what, how is it different if I exercise, right? If I do these sudden bursts of hard cardio for a short period of time, how does that affect me, right?
Yeah.
And how does my thinking, how does facing that thing, maybe that thing that I've been avoiding, that conversation that I don't want to have with whoever it is in my life that might increase my baseline of stress. What
Hmm.
happens when I face it and move towards it? So
Yeah.
if you can put some of these things into practical terms, then you can see if what works for you and get to know yourself and your physiology much better.
I love a good gold nugget takeaway or action plan. Yeah, action plans are so important. So it is like pick one of these things, pick something, and work that through. I think that's really important.
Well, apparently the clock on the wall says that's all the time we have for today. So we will see you next time on Two Therapists, One Couch.
Thanks, Courtney.